Hey everyone, welcome to a new video. Today we're going to be checking out some new Korean picks from 9.16 that people are using and abusing for solo queue. The first half of this, actually just more than half of this are going to be like kind of weirder ones or newer ones, and then the rest of them are going to be picks that aren't necessarily new builds but are just really strong again and weren't last patch. As most of you guys know, Korea love their lane bullies, right? They are really aggressive early game, and since Jace and Kennen took a bit of a hit with nerfs, even though AD Kennen is still kind of coming back as well, they're starting to play Quinn top lane now. There are a few Quinn mains who absolutely rage at me in the comments when I mention her as if I'm giving it away and stuff, but this time it's the Koreans, it's not even me. It's Blade the Ruined King, and it's attack speed, normally like Phantom Dancer or a Shiv, and then Infinity Edge afterwards, so it's kind of like attack speed and crit focus rather than lethality. You still have really good dueling power, you're still going to be able to 1v1 easily with the blind, kiting people around, bullying people, and it's basically a lot like Vayne top. It's actually a very similar build as well, a similar deal, punishes melee top laners, uses Harrier procs to do bonus damage, blind when they want to fight, and kind of roll over the lane. The difference between the two and why Quinn is getting used a bit more is that she can then roam afterwards and start to win other lanes or do a bit more work around the map. Pressy attack is your keystone, very easy to proc this, and it has very good synergy with your mark system, and it's decent when you're not running your burst build. Some people do still play Ghostblade, Shiv, Duskblade, and that kind of thing. They try to blow the load at the start of a fight and make somebody disappear. If you're going to run that, it is normally Phase Rush or Electrocute as your keystone, but this is way more about like consistent auto attack damage and abilities as well at the same time. I've seen a few people running this as an AD carry as well, by the way, but top lane is definitely being used more and more as the patch goes on. As you guys probably know, because I say it all the time, Korean AD carry meta is very stale. It's very like the top tier champions and that's it, like Kai'Sa, Ezreal, Lucian, a bit of Jinx and Xayah thrown in as well. Miss Fortune isn't played a ton, but she has a really cool build that I found and that I've seen with the Manamune and Death's Dance. Now Manamune sounds really troll, I know, as a rush, but when it's upgraded, it adds even more burst to your combo, and it sort of actually does make sense. Miss Fortune's mana costs are pretty high, so having this really does help in the lane, and you could probably max your E first if you wanted to with Arcane Comet, but most will max their Q out. Pressy attack is a normal page that most people use with it. It adds a lot more trading with your W, and it can set up the rest of your combo pretty well, but I think it's just much better for laning. As we said, after your Manamune, you're going to go into your Death's Dance, and then lethality or arm penetration, so it starts off really weird, and then it goes into like more standard. I think the idea is that you have a better lane phase to start with, or you can spam your spells a little bit more. You get an advantage that way, and instead of just relying on your arm pen only. Adding Death's Dance afterwards means you're going to heal from all of your ability damage. You have a lot of AD still. You get some cooldown reduction, and Death's Dance is actually a really good item on Miss Fortune anyway. You're going to have a really good mid game with this build though, like spike really hard once your Manamune is transformed into Mira Mana. You're going to burst so much harder, and that is where we really swap back to AD and arm penetration to make that hit harder as well. It is a weird build for sure. It's played in about 10% of games at higher ranks, so it's not like the most popular or anything, but it is definitely decent. Let me know if any of you have tried this or you're going to try it. I'm really curious how good this actually feels in game. So following on from that, we have another like off-meta lane bully. That's going to be Swain, but bot lane. This is for AD carry, like replacing the AD. Swain was updated a few patches ago, right? And one of the big things there was that he now infinitely scales with the health stacking mechanic added. So he's not going to fall off like as hard, even though he won't be as high damage output as an AD carry. You're not completely screwing your late game. I've seen it a fair chunk at higher ranks to kind of cheese lane, but it's better way clear than most AD carries and way more damage early in the lane phase. Your E, your claw, is pretty much longer than any AD carry's attack range, so if they want to CS, they're in range to get dragged in. It's really hard to play against, but that sets up a lot of supports and a lot of their damage as well, which probably makes you flash or take a huge chunk at least. It's usually going to be execute as well for more burst damage. If you think about it as well, supports already do a lot of damage, and when you throw in a Swain as well, it just gets way worse. You sort of do need to win your late phase. That's really why you pick him in the first place anyway. It's not that hard to do either. That's like a big reason why you pick it over other stuff. If you do have a lead after lane phase, then you'll have a lot of damage. You'll be pretty hard to kill with the healing and the stacking and stuff, and you keep getting tankier obviously as the game goes on. The build is way more aggressive than the pre-update version. We're not looking at defensive items really or going off tank. It is just straight AP, and Liandry seems really insane. The jungle hasn't really changed much recently, right? It's kind of like left it alone for a while, but we do see Graves showing up a bit more and doing better. So Fleet and Electrocute are normally the way of doing it, but I've seen a few people running Dark Harvest, Lethality one-shot builds as well. In North America and in Europe and other servers, the normal build is kind of like Warrior, Cleaver, and Phantom Dancer. It's a very like a bruiser sort of build, and it's okay, but it's not crazy damage. It's nothing special. If you instead go Warrior into Ghostblade, it is so much better. It's way more burst, it's more mobility as well, and you can kite around and actually chase people down. After those two in Korea at least, it's normally Duskblade, sometimes Cleaver, sometimes Phantom Dancer, and then into a Guardian Angel afterwards. This is actually the reason that I wanted to kind of stick it in the video, because most people think that Graves is not that good at the moment, but a lot of it is actually just kind of a wrong build. Obviously, I'm not a Graves expert, so maybe I shouldn't say wrong build, but going for more burst, it seems to win way more, especially in Korea. It is definitely the way to go. You then transition into more protection later after you have that damage part down, but a lot of it is really just about the burst. If you want more consistent damage, then you can pick better things in the jungle, but the upfront damage you can pump out is really what separates him from others. He's not going to be the best early game, but once you have that Warrior and that Ghostblade combo, that is when you really start to spike and you really kind of like enter the game. So one of the biggest support changes that we've got in 9.16, Leona is winning against most popular supports right now on both sides of it. So against melee champions, she can brawl them, she can fight them with Aftershock as well. They both bring Aftershock to the table, punishing their engage or kind of like countering it. Against mages, she can like hard engage and shut them down before they start to poke or do anything in the lane phase. She has been slowly buffed a lot recently, reducing the cooldown of her W to start with so you have it up more, reducing the cooldown of her engage, her E, especially later. They did take some of her damage out with her mini update with the ultimate, but they added flat damage reduction on a W, which really helps lower small chunks of damage like auto attacks early. Most people in Korea do run Aftershock. It gives her that 2.5 seconds of not really taking much damage as she dives in, and then most likely absorbing or like wasting cooldowns that are used during that time from the enemy. Secondary can be inspiration for more regen, or domination really for more damage with cheap shot and move speed, but some people also run press the attack as well. I've seen this a few times, normally at higher ranks. It works because you auto Q auto and proc it instantly, increases your damage as well as your AD carries. It's basically like letting your AD have 2 keystones, which is sort of nuts when you think about it. Like, it's definitely more glass cannon. It's way less defense, but it is more of a kill lane. Obviously, the big problem with that is you're not as good defensively, and in general, you're not good at that anyway. You just want to dive in and fight, and if you can't, then you're not really a good pick. If you can freeze and you can win your lane phase and you can fight people, then afterwards you've got really good lockdown, a good engage ultimate, and you can really impact the map through roams or the first few team fights. One thing that I've noticed from mid lane in Korea at the moment is we're seeing less assassins and more mages come back now, and especially Taliyah. So Korea love this pick because it plays to the push and roam playstyle that is really dominant in solo queue. It's basically making the lane not really matter that much. You play PvE, you win, and you snowball other lanes, and it's kind of the easiest way to win solo queue games. Taliyah though is especially good for this because she's a really good mix of poke and burst damage. If you land the flip, then you can one-shot somebody and you burst. If you can't do that, you just fire out Qs and you'll end up chunking and kiting everybody around. You can zone team fights, you can cut off enemy teams so they can't get in. Basically, as assassins chill out more, Taliyah comes back as one of the strongest mages. Korea's hard on really comes from the early strength that Taliyah has though, so she's one of the best mid laners at the moment for the lane phase, and then for the kind of 1 to 2 item point. Your lane phase can just kind of spiral out of control if she has a lead, and at that point she has more damage than others. She can impact the map more then as well, and that is when she still is able to fully one-shot people with the flip. Next up is a bit weird because if you watched my weird builds video, then you would have seen this, but when I was doing my usual stalking, I found more people doing it. We're talking about Kindred AD, and I'm guessing this is because one guy is smashing with it, others are going to try it and see if it does actually work properly. So basically, Kindred AD carry is actually pretty decent. It's a bit weird. It might not be like top S tier, I guess, but it's really heavy burst damage with this AD crit build. It's got good cooldown reduction in here with the rushing Infinity Edge first, but then Essence Reaver afterwards, so it makes your Q and E really sting and you nuke other AD carries. I've actually tried this as well, and it is really strong after you get some AD. If you crit while you're stacking up your E, I found that you probably end up killing somebody like straight away. You can run Press the Attack or Conqueror. I think Conqueror is good for longer fights, so you can kite pretty well jumping around, and you've got your ultimate to protect yourself as well, which is so good as an AD carry. The mark system isn't as bad as you think it is either. If you can pick up a few kills early and mark them, you get it there, right? And then you get one of your marks from Crab, or like pick up a camp mid-game, and you just need that 4 for the extended range. So now we have a couple that aren't new builds, but are definitely much better in 9.16 compared to before the patch. The first one is Zoe. She's being used more and more again, and definitely can hard carry, especially early into the game. The trade-off for that typically is that you fall off harder than other poke champions, but she can dominate lane with the extra summoners and get a really big lead. Her damage isn't going to be as insane as it used to be after repeated nerfs, but it is still a one-shot really, and that's all you need. You fish for your bubbles, you try to land one, and then you go in for the kill. That is the playstyle in a nutshell. You literally rinse and repeat over and over. But if you do get a lead, there isn't really much you can do against a good Zoe at least. You need to get close to her. You need to get directly on top of her, hard engage, and then shut her down. That's the only way to deal with it. That is not going to be easy when she is so far back, sending bubbles through terrain to extend the range, and then only getting close if she lands one in the first place. She is definitely a sort of like 1v9 champion, and I think that's why if Korea can find an excuse to play her, they definitely will. Another one that has definitely spiked up is Jax. He was instantly played more after the patch dropped, and he's now around top 5 win rate total, probably one of the best top laners in the game now. There isn't a new build or anything like that. It's the same abuse of Conqueror to win trades and pray you can get into Spear before the game ends. Once you have those, at least in Korea, like the Trinity Force and the Spear together, most sites have it at over a 60% win rate from that point into the game. Reaching 2 items, just 2 items, relatively expensive, but still you win 60%, almost 70% if you get towards your Sterak's and Guardian Angel. I know Jax is designed as a late game champion, but even for that, it's pretty insane. He is just so strong and he scales like an absolute monster. If you aren't sure, the change that kind of brought him back was the change to his Q. They lowered the cooldown early, so in theory, he can jump a bit more and jump even more as well with Spear, right? Stun more on top of that after using your ultimate, and that's on top of having a lot of damage already. That is what makes him so hard to fight and shut down after he gets his Spear. He's just able to stun pretty much like straight after each other, or before, like he at least gets 2 or 3 off in a fight. One thing that is a bit different is some people also use Grasp, by the way, and it works really well at grabbing Demolish and nuking towers. It does obviously suck you losing the Conqueror. It's a really good keystone. You have the healing and the true damage, but you take towers faster. You have a better lane phase, and you get more health from Grasp and Overgrowth, and end up surviving longer in fights. So those are going to be some kind of new / weirder / just better picks, I guess, for 9.16 from Korean solo queue. Hopefully you end up using one of these builds. If you do, let me know how it goes. Thank you for watching the video until the very end. Make sure you thumbs up if you do. It really helps me out. And for now, I will leave you with the robots.